What fabric should you learn to sew with? My name is Dennett. I'm a sewing content creator, sewing pattern designer, and I have a degree in fashion design, and I've been sewing for about 13 years, and I started as a home sewist and then went on to train. So here are my tips of what fabrics to use if you're learning to sew. So I would always recommend is to use 100% cotton poplin. And the reasons for this is when you're starting to learn to sew, you don't want anything or any fabric that's going to misbehave and cause you extra issues. With cotton poplin, it's a non-stretch, a woven fabric, and it pretty much does whatever you tell it to do. So when you're learning to sew or you're learning a sewing skill for the first time, you really want a fabric that will behave and do what you want it to do. Cotton poplins come in different weights of fabric, so maybe try a mid-weight fabric. You don't want anything that's too thin or too thick, because that again will hinder your sewing experience when you're learning to sew or do a skill, because also it's got some grip to it. So when you place your two sides together, one, it doesn't move around a lot, you can see, because it's got that friction and that grip, which again means it will go smoothly underneath your sewing machine, and also your pins will fit nicely in it, and once you've pinned it, it should stay in place. Other woven fabrics could also be easier to sew with, but there are different elements to it, such as I'm wearing a viscose here, which again is a woven fabric. It's a non-stretch fabric, so it hasn't got any stretch, but because viscose tend to be a little bit more lightweight, sometimes when it's more lightweight and drapey, it can move around a little bit more easier, and your pins will move around in it a little bit more easier. It will then make it harder to sew when you're learning. Same with satin fabric. Again, satin can be a woven, a non-stretch, but because it tends to have a shiny element to it, anything with a slippery surface means it's going to slip around underneath your sewing machine. So before you go on to satin or viscose or more of a lightweight fabric, or one that's a little bit more shiny, make sure that you have mastered cotton first. So those are my recommendations of the fabrics to use and not use when you're starting to learn to sew. I'm posting a sewing tutorial or sewing tip video every single day of September, which is a series that I'm calling Learn to Sew in September. So if you're a beginner sewer and you want to take the anxiety out of it or make it a little bit less overwhelming, follow along with the series and I'm sure I'll help you out. Again, I'll see you again tomorrow. Bye, happy sewing!